ever just stopped and wondered if your thoughts, your consciousness might actually go somewhere, ripple out, maybe, connect with others, or I don't know, even shape reality itself? Well, today we're diving into something really fascinating. We're looking at a collection of your materials, articles, notes, research that really push the boundaries, thinking about energy, consciousness, how it all might connect.
Exactly. We're looking at some, let's call them moonshot hypotheses. Things like zero-point energy, this idea of a universal field flow, Dr. Wiping Yu's Uwan theory, and how thought itself might be interconnected. What's kind of striking about these sources together is how they try to build this, well, this grand theory of everything almost.
Hmm.
Something mainstream science isn't really focused on right now. It's a bold vision for sure. But, we'll mix these big ideas with what science does know and keep a critical eye on things that aren't proven.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. The first big one from your research, zero point energy, ZPE. Your stuff describes it as energy that exists even at the absolute bottom, the lowest state possible.
That's the gist, yeah. Think of it like a background hum of energy everywhere, even in empty space.
Yeah.
It comes out of quantum mechanics, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, basically.
Right, the uncertainty principle.
And the Casimir effect is often pointed to as, like, real-world evidence that this energy is actually there.
Okay, so this energy is just everywhere. How does that connect to the next idea, this universal field flow?
Well, the speculation in these materials is that these ZPE fluctuations, these quantum jitters happening everywhere, might actually power or underpin this universal field flow. Now, that term universal field flow, it's not standard physics, It's conceptual.
Yeah.
Imagine a dynamic field across the whole universe acting as a medium.
A medium? Like for what?
For energy, potentially information, maybe even thought, traveling vast distances, almost like a cosmic internet, if you will.
Wow, okay. A cosmic internet. Does this field, according to the sources, have any kind of like structure? Because that seems important.
That's where Dr. Weeping Yu's Ulan theory comes into the picture in your materials. It's definitely a bold proposal. He was a NASA physicist.
Okay, what's the core idea there?
He proposes a single fundamental particle called the Ulan, and this related magnetic medium that supposedly unifies all the fundamental forces.
Unifies everything. Okay, that's ambitious.
Very. And connecting it back, the speculative model suggests this magnetic medium from Ulan theory could actually be the universal field flow we just talked about, maybe energized by a ZPE.
I see the connection they're trying to make.
But, and this is a big but, Ulan theory has no experimental proof. None. And it clashes pretty significantly with the standard model of particle physics, which is our current best experimentally verified description.
Right. So it's an interesting idea floating out there, but scientifically it's on the fringes because it lacks proof and contradicts established models.
Exactly. The lack of experimental evidence is the main thing, plus the conflict with, established quantum field theory. But building on all that theoretical groundwork, perhaps the most paradigm-shifting idea in your sources is this concept of thought interconnectivity via energy.
Okay, so moving beyond just physics concepts into consciousness itself.
Right. The idea is that thinking isn't just neurons firing in your head, a purely local biochemical thing. It's also an energetic phenomenon. And that this energy links us somehow through these invisible fields, resonating, maybe in some kind of shared information field.
How would that even work? Do the sources suggest mechanisms?
They float ideas like thought waves or resonances in the field. And they point to things like studies on EEG coherence between people, research into the heart's electromagnetic field and its connection to the brain, even the Global Consciousness Project, as potential, though certainly not definitive, indicators.
Potential indicators. Okay.
So this overall picture, this thought field hypothesis, it imagines this universal field, maybe powered by ZPE, maybe structured by something like Uwan interactions.
Yeah.
And thoughts travel within it, like patterns. It suggests we're not just sending thoughts, but maybe receiving them too. Perhaps in layers from your own sort of mind-body system up to a planetary level, what some call the noosphere.
A new sphere.
Right.
A global mind. That's pretty mind-boggling. It feels like pure sci-fi. But okay, bringing it back down to Earth, what does current physics actually say? Is any of this even remotely plausible, according to mainstream science?
Well, the sources themselves acknowledge the hurdles, and they are significant. For one, the electromagnetic fields our brains generate are incredibly weak, like really, really weak. Hard to see them having effects over large distances.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah. And neuroscience generally finds cognition happens right there in the brain. Plus, actually getting usable energy out of ZPE, that's still purely theoretical and seems to defy known thermodynamics right now.
And the Yuan theory underpinning part of it is still unproven.
Still unproven, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yes, these ideas require some major leaps both creatively and in terms of evidence. There's no clear path to validation based on current science.
Okay, big leaps needed. But let's imagine for a second, if they were proven right somehow, what would that even mean? Your sources mention things like thought amplifiers.
Right. Imagine devices that could boost or broadcast thought energy, maybe tapping into ZPE fields,
Mm.
or consciousness networks directly linking minds through these engineered fields. The implications are just vast.
Completely transformative.
And that immediately brings up huge ethical questions, doesn't it? If thoughts are interconnected, potentially accessible, what happens to mental privacy, cognitive liberty?
Yeah, those concepts could become almost meaningless.
It would force a fundamental rethink of consciousness,
Yeah.
what it means to be an individual, the nature of reality itself, really deep stuff.
Wow. Well, we've definitely taken a fascinating dive into a really speculative but strangely cohesive framework here, based on the materials you shared. Pushing boundaries is an understatement.
It really is. So the question for you, listening, is what do you take away from this? Even if these ideas stay on the speculative edge, what if? What if our thoughts do have some kind of energetic ripple effect in a larger field, constantly interacting, shaping, and being shaped by a sort of global consciousness? What might that change about how you see empathy, connection, even your own place in the universe? Something to ponder.